Hello, and welcome to the Joy CEO podcast. I'm your host, Lori Pine, and I am so thrilled to have my very dear friend, Mallika Malhotra, the brand CEO, with us today. You are going to love our conversation as Mallika is a former corporate veteran herself and now a personal branding expert. So let's dig in. Welcome, Mallika.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to see you.
It is so good to see you. So, funny little story. I live in New York and grew up in Maine and was here in the metro New York area. And somebody said to me, "Oh, I have this good friend who has lived in New Jersey. You're going to want to meet her because she's just a rock star. But now she lives in Maine." And little did they know that I also had that same connection. And that's how I was introduced to Mallika. And so on one of my summer trips home to Maine to the lake, I stopped in southern Maine, met up with Mallika, and we did a whole branding session. So we're going to talk to you today about that. But ever since then, Mallika and I have been kismet, and she has just been a wealth of knowledge with her branding expertise. And so let's talk about how you got started in branding. You were a corporate veteran, worked on some really big brands, L'Oréal, Oil of Olay, and Clorox.
Yes. So post-college, had a dream of being an advertising executive because it was like a sexy creative industry. And so, wanted to go to New York, which is the mecca for advertising. So did just that after I graduated from college and worked on these big brands, L'Oréal, which was amazing. My first introduction to beauty and image advertising, which was so interesting. And at the time, I'm dating myself, the mid 90s, it was a totally different landscape. It was TV, print, and radio, maybe some billboards and direct mail if you were going to go crazy, right? None of the social media stuff, but like the training and the learning with those big mediums, right? That was the only mediums I think were so valuable in learning how to create a campaign, and how to tell a story, how to differentiate with all of these brands that were in saturated markets, right? You're begging for people's attention and to buy your product. Those are great lessons that we apply every day to our own brands as personal brands. And so it was a great experience to be in a big city, working on big clients and big agency. I learned a lot. I also learned all of the layers and the bureaucracy that happens with corporate, right? Where you have this amazing idea and you nourish it and cultivate it. And then it gets to the top and then it's like redlined. The person at the top who hasn't even been part of the process, throws it out the window and you're sort of deflated, and the whole creative process, you're like, wondering how that even happen, and you have to start from scratch. And so, those types of, experiences were very valuable just in, evolving me into the business person that I am today.
Yes. And you think about like all that waste, all the time waste, all the money waste, and the lessons learned just from that part of it, and how when you boil that down and you bring that into a personal brand or an entrepreneurial brand, and there's no luxury to have that sort of waste, you can get really scrappy. And
Yes.
I think that you pride yourself on that.
Yeah, the ability to pivot and to make decisions quickly, right? The nimbleness, that is what entrepreneurship is all about. It's like, you don't have to wait for someone else's approval. You can make that approval on your own. You could take action, even if it's messy, even if it's imperfect. I mean, that's the joy of being an entrepreneur, that it's kind of your own agency, right? That you can make these decisions on your own. And failure is there. Failure felt so big in the corporate world because of the amount of money that was behind it. And, the threat of the advancement of your career was attached to it.
Yes.
And now, yes, there's failure, but your resiliency, there's grit, there's pivoting, there's restart, right? Like, I can't even think of all the places I've moved and all the things that I've done as an entrepreneur, I was able to do quickly and just keep going and keep going. It's more about what's inside of you as an entrepreneur that pushes you through to get to that next level versus all of the layers and the drama and the titles that corporate America brings to you, which, there's good and bad for both scenarios, but those are the things I don't miss in the corporate world.
I think that that very spirit is something that's really worth talking about because as we talk about pivoting, it really, the more I have these interviews and the more I talk to really amazing people like you, it seems like it's more of an unfolding and this evolution of who we're becoming. And that's certainly been the case with you. You keep reinventing yourself. You just had a big move. You moved from Maine to Texas. Big move, uproots your whole family, your business, your way of living. We were just talking before we hit record that it's 100 degrees every day right now. And so big adjustment. And so if you talk about a little bit about just this evolution and how you keep becoming perhaps this better version of yourself and the things you learn and take with you along the way, what would you say about that?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of truth to that. And you just hope that the opportunities that come to you with every change, with every pivot, with every move, with every, failure, that you can kind of see what the lessons are and the growth is. And I think that has a lot to do with personal brand, who you are. Like, I think I have been able to ride the waves of all these changes because I'm very clear about the person that I am. Right? I know clearly what my purpose is. I know clearly what my skill set is that I'm good at. I know clearly, what my passions are or what my point of view is on things. And yes, that comes with age, right? I am in my 50s, so that has been an evolution in itself. But I think if you are very clear on the person that you are, when these changes unfold, you can ride that wave easier because you're anchored in that personal brand, if that makes sense.
I think that makes perfect sense. And we are in such a time of change right now, especially in the business world with all of the technology that's coming on board. We're hearing every day there's a new headline about a company that's downsizing and reorging and acquisitions and mergers. And so it leaves a lot of uncertainty for people. So if we talk about how to build that personal brand, in order to build confidence, in order to build our own stability. What would you say about that? And where does somebody begin?
Yeah, I think it takes a lot of self-discovery, right? You have to ask yourself some of these hard questions. You need to have that quiet space to kind of be able to ask yourself, beyond the paycheck, why am I doing this work? What is that big why behind it? That sense of purpose. And this is hard for young people because I have, kids in college or post-college that are having trouble right now finding jobs, right? So this is where I do think personal brand does come into play because it's beyond the title. This is sort of this embodiment of who you are. So again, number one is that sense of purpose beyond that paycheck. Why are you doing this work, right? Kind of that mission and vision that we would use for our businesses, you're also going to use for you as a person. What is your point of view? Is there something that pisses you off out there in the industry that riles you up, that you feel so strongly about, that you want to then bake into this personal brand? I think people are often afraid to be polarizing, but it actually is going to make you memorable. It's actually going to help you stand out. So don't be afraid of having a strong opinion about something. How can you then bake that into your personal brand? Then, of course, there's your prowess, which is your skill set. What do you do better than other people, right? Have you really asked yourself, like, why do people come to you and only you every single time? What feels easy for you in the workplace? Really understand that. Write it down. Write down all the things that come easy to you or that, feel like joy when you're doing it, because those are seeds of what you can anchor your personal brand in as well. So purpose, prowess, your passions, your point of view, I think those are the foundations of really developing that personal brand. And when I say personal brand, I think it's worthy of defining that, right? I mean, your reputation, right? When you're not in the room, what are people saying about Lori Pine? That is your personal brand. That is a statement that you're making. And if you're not actively shaping that, I'm sorry to break the news to you, someone is. someone is saying something about you, or the industry is saying something about you, or your boss is saying something about you, you need to take an active role in what you want people to know about you, what you want to be known for.
Yes. Yes. Okay. There was so much in there that was so good. I need to dig in a little bit. So, sense of purpose, knowing your vision and your mission outside of just getting a paycheck. There are so many people who are going to work right now, today, that might be listening to this podcast who are just going for a paycheck. And yet, you and I both know that there is something so much bigger. What do you say to the people who come to you, know that there's something bigger, know that they have a bigger purpose, but maybe they're afraid?
Yeah, I think it is hard, right? Because you need the money, right? There, it's a luxury to think that we can define our purpose. Let's be honest. Like, some people need to go to work, they need a paycheck, they need to pay their bills, they have families. But if you can just pause and just kind of think back to that younger self before all these demands came into your world, right? All the stressors of like what you really wanted out of your life, or even think like, what would you would hope for your children? Sometimes if we put it in that perspective, it helps us kind of remove ourselves from the day-to-day stressors. That might help you define the vision that you want, right? The mission behind, like, the real reason you get up every morning. Maybe it's not to get the money in your bank, but maybe it's because you want to build a legacy for your family. Maybe it's because you want to be a strong role model to your daughter so that she could see what female empowerment looks like in the workplace, right? You have to ask yourself those hard questions. You have to sit in the quiet to really think about it. I think often we don't do it. We plug in, we do the work, we go home, and then we get into this, uncomfortable space of just not feeling fulfilled, not having joy, right? Not then doing the good work that we should be doing. So these are hard questions to ask, and it's not going to be done overnight. You kind of have to give yourself time, give yourself space to think about these things and write things down and see where you can connect the dots, right? Where the purpose maybe links to what you're good at, which links to, your passion. And I forgot to even mention your personality, right? Personality is such a big part of your personal brand, right? How do you naturally show up in the world?
Such a big part. Such a big part. Okay, what makes you memorable? The whole point of view. What makes you memorable? How does somebody know what makes them memorable?
Well, sometimes you got to ask other people in the room, right?
Yes. You had me do that.
Yes. And it is uncomfortable, right? Because it almost feels like a vanity thing, but it's not. It is, if you frame it as, I am trying to get feedback from others on what I bring to the table, what you think of me for first, right? What are the couple of words that you think about when you hear my name? Because I want to shape, my presence, my brand in the room to do better work. I think people that are very open to give you that feedback, but you have to ask. You have to ask others, ask your bosses for feedback. What am I doing well? What do I have areas of improvement, right? Ask your peers, when you think of me, who am I? Like, I had a good example of a personal brand in the corporate space is like, there was a woman who I used to work with in advertising, and we called her like the closer. She was the one, all those layers I told you that people, redlining and throwing the idea out. When we were at a point where we knew we had to close and get approval, we would bring her in, prep her. And even though she wasn't always part of the team, she had that reputation. Prep her on the project, prep her on the client, bring her in, and she would be part of the team. And when we couldn't get the yes, she would be able to support the team and get the yes. And it was a personality thing. It was her tone, her voice. It was the way she analyzed the room. She just had this thing about her, and she was known as the closer. That is a great example of a personal brand in a corporate setting.
That is such a great example. You created such a visual for me. It's like, I feel like I know her. I know what she does. I know what she's wearing. And she just walked into the room. So yes, that's an incredible visual. Prowess, the skill set that comes easy. I have this experience of people don't necessarily know that the thing that they do well, the thing that comes easy to them, they don't know that it doesn't come easy to other people.
Mm.
How do you help them figure out that's kind of their unicorn gift?
Yeah. Again, I think it's, sometimes you have to do a daily like schedule of your day, like recording of your day, figuring out all the different tasks that you do. You have to write it down, you have to record it, you have to measure it. And then you kind of see like, what are the things that I did today that you felt, the feeling, there's an energy, that flow, the ease
Yes.
and flow, right? What are the things that people keep coming to me for? They might keep coming to you for, if they have a problem with a team, someone on their team, and you become like almost like the therapist / worker, right? There are certain things that people keep coming to you for. So you just have to pay attention and you have to write things down and you have to kind of measure what are, the volume that keeps coming for this certain task over and over again. People are asking me, and it might be eye opening because you've just been in the weeds the whole time and you haven't been able to figure it out.
Yes.
Look at the feedback that you're getting in your, quarterly, yearly reviews. Like really look at that and then compare that to the things that are your in flow. Compare that to the things that you love to do, that you want to do more of. Again, I think it's like, you have to ask yourself these questions. You have to sit and press pause and really think about it instead of just doing the next task and the next task and the next task. I think we've been programmed to be kind of like machines instead of
for sure.
real people
Yes.
with emotions and ideas and visions and goals. And so I think the only way you're going to figure out what you're good at is by asking other people, by measuring the work that you already do, by looking at the feedback that you have, by looking at what takes you, short time and it feels playful and fun. And then look at that and then see like, what are the common themes here? What keeps coming up over and over again? And that's when you're going to be able to nail it.
Yes. I think that warrants acknowledgement, that whole busyness around a to-do list, that chronic busyness that can keep us really distracted from the meat of our life, the real energy that can bring us to life and give us the purpose of what it is we're here to do when we're mired in tasks and to-dos.
And it's a great exercise to do when you're starting to get that burnout feeling where you're feeling really down. It's like taking a step back. And I don't know if you remember this when we did branding for you. It's that brand map that we wrote, like your name in the middle. We kind of wrote all of your experience and your jobs and the courses or the degrees and like your interests and your passions, kind of like just did a brain dump of all of those things around your name. And then highlighting kind of the priorities or the things that really resonate with you. And then looking at that in this more holistic picture and saying, okay, I love to travel and I have a skill set in negotiations and, I have an MBA, like all the things, and trying to connect some dots of like, okay, that might just be what re-energizes you, right? That might be what makes you open your eyes to say, why am I in marketing when I should be in HR? Like, just some ideas to give you some perspective instead of drowning in that burnout and the day-to-day task list where you're just kind of going to be in this black hole for how long?
Right. Wishing away the years so that you can get to something that you're not even sure what that is, where you might actually be happy and experiencing joy.
Yeah.
So good. So let's just like recap. Somebody's out there listening. They don't have a personal brand. Steps 1 through 4. What do they do?
Yeah. So again, you're going to have to really set some time to start thinking about yourself, right? That self-discovery and asking yourself some of these questions. Number 1, what I would say is take a poll, ask people around you, audit your reputation, ask your colleagues, like, what are the top 3 words that come to mind when you think of me, right? And then collect that data and notice some patterns. The second, Think about the things that frustrate you at work, in your industry, with your clients. Develop a point of view. How would you want to change things, right? How would you create the vision of what you want? This is where that thought leadership comes in. Okay. Then I want you to look at what you already have out there on your LinkedIn, on your website. You know, what's the story that you're telling already right now? And do we need to shift it? Do we need to take pieces that work and then remove the pieces that don't? And is it consistent? The worst is when you have one story on LinkedIn, another story on your website, maybe you're on a different social media and everything is confusing. And then your personal brand is just, it goes to shit. Let's just say,
Yes.
And then since we're on the Joy CEO podcast, what brings you joy, right? Like what can you anchor your brand in that's going to bring you joy? If you can start with those 4 things, very practical things, I think that's going to help you start shaping what that personal brand can be. And then you can ask yourself the bigger questions of like, what's my purpose? And then, what's my personality? And what's that point of view? And then layer that on top. But I want you to start small with like, what are people saying about me right now? That is like the biggest question that's going to give you some breadcrumbs, some clues on how you want that brand to be.
Yes. Yes. And so let's talk. I love all of this. Thank you so much for that. This is so valuable. And I hope everybody is just like soaking this all in, writing notes is wherever you are. If you're on a walking trail and jogging or you're in the car, you're like safely taking notes with all of this. But let's talk about how that has impacted you and how you continually take your own advice in your own life, in your own brand to keep this evolution going.
Yeah, exactly. So, I have been an entrepreneur for over 2 decades. I had product businesses that evolved into photography for children and family, that then evolved into brand photography and then brand strategy, right? And so I think for me, it is, understanding the market, understanding the competition, understanding what I have always been good at, and then seeing how I can optimize those skills, looking at what the marketplace looks like. So an example is, 2025, AI is here, right? AI is here, and either you embrace it or you're going to be falling behind. So I know as a brand strategist who is in her 50s, where there are young brand strategists coming into the world every day, in their 20s, in their 30s. And let's be honest, they are so much better at being online. They are tech savvy, and I can't deny that. So what can I deliver to the marketplace that will keep me relevant and keep me evolving? So my age and my experience is my asset, as is ours. Anyone who is in their mid-50s, we have done it all that those 20 or 30-year-olds cannot even compare. And this is just fact, right? We have experience. I have corporate experience. I have, entrepreneurial experience. I have life experience. And so with all of that, and with the changes in the world with AI, what can I deliver that will keep me relevant? And so I thought long and hard about this. And of course, I've had all the masterminds and the memberships and I've done all the things, but I decided to actually pull back from that and instead learn about how to create AI bots that could take my proven strategies, which I have worked so long on, and put it in a platform like ChatGPT, which you and I and everyone else probably has on their computers right now, and create a tool that will be more accessible, more affordable, and help people with what they need. And people now want speed and they want personalization. They want you to bring them through a very short process to get the results that they need to get to the next step. And AI does that. But with AI, I don't know if you've experienced this, because most people have. When you're on ChatGPT and you're asking, open-ended, help me develop my brand, with no training, no guidelines, you're going to get answers from ChatGPT that are going to be all across the board and really going to be generic. And you're going to get frustrated and you're going to be like, this is not what I asked for. This is not who I am, right? That is the problem. So knowing that that is the problem, what I have created to keep myself relevant, to scale my expertise, is I created these AI bots that are pre-trained on my intellectual property and my proven systems. So it is an interactive experience where you click on a link that takes you to ChatGPT and it'll say, what's your name? And you'll say, Lori Pine. And it'll say, hey, Lori, today we're going to work on your brand positioning. And what that means is we're going to try to figure out how you can develop a powerful niche so you could stand out. I'm going to ask you 10 questions. Now, these 10 questions are based on my frameworks that I've created over years and years of experience. And it's going to ask you 10 questions and you're going to answer, and you can brain dump. It doesn't have to be perfect. You have to just share what is in alignment with your story, your brand. And then based on that information, because this bot is pre-trained, it will give you what I have crafted as a deliverable, a brand statement based on my framework, an elevator pitch, a business bio, right? So now you have these assets that are done for you that you can go into the world and start delivering. That is what people want. They don't want, most people don't want to invest 4 figures and time in trying to figure that out, especially if you're new, especially if you're on a budget, especially if you're in a time crunch. Some people will. So I don't think this is ever going to replace my job. Bots are never going to replace your job because some people will want that high touch expertise, strategic mind on their business, right?
Right.
But there are people that want this. And so how can I create a product that fits in the time, that uses and leverages my expertise? I believe that AI is the way to do that. And so I've created this product called the Brand Force, which is coming soon to do that. And I do believe this is going to help me stay relevant in a world that's getting even more saturated with even more talent in the marketplace as I become one of the older strategists in the market.
I love this so much. I love how you took your own advice, you took your own framework, you applied it to your situation, you applied it to yourself, and you said, how do I form this next evolution of my own personal brand? What am I passionate about? What can I stand on a soapbox about? What can I really, apply my skill set to? Where's my personality in all this? And it sounds like you literally tied all that together. If I understand it right, you got some extra certifications in this AI world and you learned how to do it. And now you're helping others do it as well for their brands.
Yeah. So my clients who I am building their brands with them, I'm building their frameworks, I'm building their thought leadership, their strategy. Then all of a sudden, they'll say like, how can we take my framework and create an AI tool so that more people can get solutions to their problems? And so now with the knowledge I have of building, I probably have built about 20 internal and external bots because I use it within my business as well as selling it as a forward-facing product. I now know how to do it for my clients. And I only do it for my clients because I know their businesses inside and out. And so when I know their business, because I've helped them develop their brand, then it's just a next step, kind of a natural step to then how do we scale that expertise that we work so hard to create into a product that you can now sell to more people? And it takes you out of the equation. So then you get your time back, right? So, is it scary to do this? 100%. Yes. So you're talking about fear before. I am not an AI techie person by any means, but I know my frameworks. I know brand strategy. I know I can help a lot of people. And the idea of helping one client at a time, as much as I love to treat their business like mine and go all in, I also know that there are more people that need the help, but just might not be able to afford it right now if they wanted to work with me. And why would I gatekeep this system, this framework that I have? And the questions come up because I talk to a lot of people. It's like, what if another brand strategist buys your product and takes your framework? And I'm like, this is the world we live in. I can take someone's course and learn from them, right? And I'll always pull things out and bake it into my own framework. This is what the world is with an online business. So is it, your bot versus a course versus a book, right? Like everything is out there. So no one is ever going to replace me and my personal brand, my prowess, my personality, all the things we talked about. So
Right.
I have no problem with that. I've sort of let that go. Maybe that's also being, over 50. I'm not going to even worry about it. Like it is what it is, right? And maybe my 30-year-old or 40-year-old self would have kept it really close and been like, no way am I going to share this. But I don't feel like that anymore. I want to do good work for people. I want more. If a brand strategist needs it, then use it. I hope it helps more people.
Yes. And what I hear in all of that is that you value impact over proprietary knowledge. And that's when we know that we're showing up in the world to serve a much higher purpose than just ourselves. And I
Yes.
think,
Thank you. I didn't think of it that way, but that is
yeah,
very true. Thank you for
yes.
that.
And that's the energy, right? That's the energy of I'm doing this for a paycheck versus I'm really doing this for a purpose.
That's right.
And it's the impact. And that gives me goosebumps because, if I think about all the people that might be sitting in a cubicle right now, just miserable and wondering where they're going to find some joy, I really hope that the stuff that I'm putting in the world can just move that needle just a little bit, because I remember those days when I was sitting, in an office going, oh my gosh, is this it? Because this can't be it. So, yeah. So it's the impact that we want to have, and that trumps just about anything. So,
Yeah. And I think, it's curiosity, right? Of like
oh,
thinking of
yes.
what could be, like knowing what you've done, the work, the experience, all of the degrees you might have under your belt, and just thinking of like, what could you create from this? If money or fear were not an object, were not an obstacle, right? What would you be doing? And that can be just a seed of an idea that helps you develop the person you want to become with this personal brand.
Yeah. And start to move in that direction again with that energy. I also think, and I know that you're the same way with this, but the power of relationships can never be underestimated. And as much as we're moving into an AI world, and AI is so valuable and it's giving us speed and it's giving us information at our fingertips, it can't replace the collaborations and the relationships that we build and that human connection and the experiences we garner when we have, one-to-one conversations or even one-to-many conversations when we're in community. And so to make sure that we have those communities, those people, those trusted mentors is so valuable. And that's what you have been for me since I've been on this entrepreneurial journey. For anybody listening, Mallika was the person I went to. She helped me build my brand. Name the Joy CEO came from Mallika. So it's all roads lead back to her at the beginning of this journey. She was my first photo shoot, the whole shebang. So yeah, relationships matter.
Yeah. I mean, the depth, right? The meaning behind it. Like, sure, AI gives you speed, but like when you're in a room and you have that energy, I just feel like the things that come out, the creativity that can come out, the collaboration, right? That vibe is just, you cannot duplicate that through Claude or ChatGPT. As much as they give you good information, it's sort of like the implementation they can't give you. That comes with, that human contact.
Yes.
So there's a place for both.
Yes. Through your group, I've made friends. I mean, amazing friends, Jalpa and Kate and Kim. And I mean, on and on and on, just amazing friends came out of that group. So people I'm in touch with today. So it's powerful.
That makes me so happy.
Yes. Powerful to be in community. Yes. Nicole, Jill. Yeah. So many, right? So many people. Yes. Yes. And then I was working with a client and she needed her brand redone. Her own personal brand needed help. And I brought you into that client. And so it's really been a wonderful, wonderful reciprocity with you, Mallika. It's been amazing.
And I have loved seeing your evolution as well. Like, look at you here on a podcast. I mean, your own. It's just amazing. So,
yes, super fun. So, one thing I love to ask my clients is, what was your dirtiest job ever? Quote unquote, dirtiest job ever.
Yes. So I worked in advertising and started at the bottom. I was the admin for the head of all of L'Oréal, like on the agency side. And she was a bigwig, and she was this, she was actually French. She was French, and she had the short bob. She kind of had like that Anna Wintour kind of a vibe to her. And she always wore the black nail polish before the black nail polish was all hot in New York in the 90s. And I would do all of her expenses, and she would, wine and dine the clients, or so I thought. And she would come back to me with all of these receipts to, report. And then one day I got called into the head of accounting, and he was like the CFO, like a bigwig. And he asked me if these receipts were real, because they didn't seem like they could be real. And there was some like back checking on that. They weren't client related. And here I am as a 21-year-old, totally sweating, right? Questioning, who am I loyal to the company or to my boss? What am I being asked here? Very uncomfortable. It was very obvious that these dinners were not client dinners, and I had reported them. So was my job on the line, and just felt like I had to just kind of tell the truth of just, she gave them to me and I reported them as asked. I never questioned them because she was my boss. And so I kind of got off, but the dirty work became revealed that they were not legitimate dinners. They were thousands of dollars being spent at, Daniel and all of these, like, as a 21-year-old admin,
Michelin star restaurants.
Yeah, Michelin star restaurants. And she got fired. She got fired because it was kind of an ongoing investigation, which was much bigger than me. I thought it was like all because of me. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm part of this dirty work. And I kind of felt like now as my, 52-year-old self, she kind of took advantage of that, right? Like,
totally.
She took advantage of her team and her admin because they knew that they would never question her and that she wasn't going to do her own expenses. And it's like, now it kind of just puts like a bad taste in my mouth of like how that could happen, because I was part of her team. So it reflected on me as well. Right. And I just think that's an awful model to have for a young person who wants to break into this industry and be her at one point.
It actually sounds like she took advantage of the entire company, thinking she was above that sort of behavior and in some ways entitled to treat herself and whomever she might have been with on the company. So there's an entitlement thinking there that just, goes well beyond all of that. So yes. Okay, so we are going to wrap up with some rapid fire questions. I do this with all of my guests at the end. So there's 5 questions. And are you ready?
I think so.
Yes, you are. You are so ready. Okay, number 1, one piece of leadership advice you wish you had learned earlier.
Take risks. It's okay. Even if you're not ready, take the risk and just see what unfolds. I wish I did more of that.
I love that. Number 2, a daily habit or practice that keeps you grounded.
Morning meditation. I've been doing it since the pandemic. It's only 5 or 10 minutes. I use Peloton, the app, and it is now something that I feel like anchors me and I have to do just to kind of start my day.
I love that. Number 3, the most joyful moment in your career so far.
Wow. Many moments, but one that comes to mind is when I actually wrote a book on brand photography and saw my name as an author in print on Amazon. But the reaction of my sons when they saw the actual book in their hands and my picture on the back, of just the recognition and the validation and the awe that their mom could do that. She wasn't just a mom.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's so great. Oh, that brings tears to my eyes. That is beautiful. That is beautiful. Okay, what's one thing that people often misunderstand about success?
That it is like a one woman show, that the woman you see that's successful, it's all her, but it really is a team of people behind her. It is a long line of failures that have happened, that it is not just this like overnight success, that it takes so much, right, to get to that point. So many people, so many failures, so many, you know, tears, blood, sweat, and tears, that, you know, whatever you see. And I tell myself this too, when I see someone, I'm like, oh my God, look at her. But when you pull it away, you know that there's a lot more that had happened for them to get to that point.
Yes, yes. That could be a book, right?
Mm.
The idea that right now it's her turn, but holy smokes, it's been a long road.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, last question. What do you want your leadership legacy to be in one sentence?
Mm. I think for me, it's empowering women to kind of recognize their expertise. I think as women, sometimes we try to be everything for anyone, but like really honing in on like, and this is what we're talking about, that personal brand, like honing in, let me help you discover that expertise so you could stand in that power, because that changes the world. That changes how you see yourself. That changes how your family sees you. You know, you're not just a mom or just a title, right? To really kind of hone in on what that power is so that you can make more impact. That's more than one sentence, but you get the gist.
I totally get the gist. And that is really one of the signature takeaways I've had from working with you, is to niche down, to not be all things to everybody. Could I coach anybody? Sure, I probably could. But you kept pushing me to niche down, niche down. No, Lori, go deeper, go further down. Who, and there was so much benefit to that, even if I was resistant at some points along the way.
Most people are.
Yes, but you had strong boundaries. You were very persistent, and that work really paid off. So thank you for that. So Mallika, it has been a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you for joining us on the show. We are so glad to have you.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun. I love being here.